Hello and welcome to today's episode of Conversando. Today we have Marisa Torres, who is an artist who has worked on, I can't list all of it because it's so much, but projects on Nickelodeon, Disney Publishing, Spin Master, Warner Brothers, Lego, the list goes on, and now has co-founded her own company, Roomy ATX, and we're gonna talk all about it today on Conversando. So hi, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to talk to you. And we met recently, which was lovely. So I was excited to come back and get to share the day and talk with you.
I am so excited. Okay, so there is so much to talk to you about, but I'm thinking we start at the beginning. Okay, now I already know your entire life story because I lived it. For those who don't know, Marisa and I have like a weird amount of things in common, like bizarre.
We might be the same person.
Up until now, you've never seen us in the same room together, so who knows?
Exactly.
Could just be one of us running back and forth. But for the people at home, what was your upbringing like?
I had a great upbringing. I'm from Houston, Texas, like we spoke about. My parents are both from Miami, so I grew up kind of going back and forth and visiting South Florida a lot. We used to stop in Disney World all the time. That was kind of like if we would fly, we would try and make time to still take a day trip or something like that and drive from Miami all the way up to Orlando.
Is that?
It's like 4 hours. If you're from Texas and you're used to long drives, it's nothing. You're like,
I
can do this. This is a day trip.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So we used to always try and stop and go to Disney World, or the few times that we drove, we would try and stop as well. So what was funny was growing up and kind of going back and forth, that chance to always stop at Disney World and see like the artistry that goes into that was actually the thing that inspired me to be an artist. Was getting to always be around there. I got lucky that my parents both love Disney, and my dad's super creative and he always loved to draw, so I kind of got a lot of that from him, and always stopping at the theme parks and being like, oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, or realizing that people built this stuff and it takes a lot of artistry, engineering, a lot of creativity to be able to tell a story just by, the environment you're creating. Yeah. So that was kind of what piqued my interest as a young kid. And then especially, growing up where I did in Houston in the suburbs, I went to a really small private school, which I know we also connected on.
We both grew up in the suburbs in Houston and went to a small private school.
Exactly. So I also, and then my parents or my family being Cuban and me being Caribbean, I had a lot of fish out of water experience and kind of didn't always fit in and had a little bit of a harder time in school, which made...
Did you ever get people being like, oh, so you're Cuban, so you're from Mexico?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, the amount of times I've been told that I speak Mexican, or that same thing, and I'm like...
Or like, what's Cuba?
Like, what is that? I don't understand.
And it's like, I swear there's other places.
Yes, or being told, like, do you get told too all the time, like, oh, you eat spicy food, and you're like, no, I'm Caribbean. No. We don't have, like...
No, literally.
Like, plantains, rice, beans, pork. Like, that's what we eat, not... I've been at a Mexican restaurant before one time, and a guy, the waiter, brought me... I was eating tacos, and the waiter comes over, and he brings me, like, a really hot salsa. Just me at the table. And he whispers to me, he goes, in case you want something with some real heat. And he walks away, and I was like, no.
Wrong kind.
I was like, I can barely handle what you gave me now.
I love that he isolated just you.
It was just me. He was like, yeah.
It's like the opposite of a microaggression.
It was fine. I was like, honestly, sir, I was like, I'm terrified of the salsa you just gave me. But yeah, I think that kind of fish out of water experience, or always feeling like a little bit different, or kind of like I couldn't quite fit in, is also what made something like storytelling so appealing to me, and world building, and seeing like how artists would do that again a lot of times in the theme parks, because it kind of provided that, escape for me as a kid. And it was a really cool thing that always piqued my interest and kind of definitely took me down the career path that I chose.
I love that. Was there a show when you were younger that you were like an animated show that you were like, oh, I love this? Like, this was like hyperfixation.
So yeah, I was a Cartoon Network kid. So I loved Johnny Bravo.
Okay,
I loved
solid.
Powerpuff Girls, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Dexter's Lab.
Traumatizing.
Yeah, terrifying to this day. To this day. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else.
The one I always, what was it? Ed, and Eddie. That's
Ed,
the
Ed
one
and
I always
Eddie,
used to
yes,
watch. Yeah.
yes. I grew up watching Ed, Ed and Eddie too. I was super into those shows.
Yeah.
And then I think as I got a little bit older, then it switched to Nickelodeon. And then I went through the Nickelodeon phase. And then I feel like every kid then eventually hits their like Disney Channel phase.
That was
you know?
my whole life, but yes. I feel that. Okay, so before we get into your amazing, like everything you've done animation-wise and drawing, all of it, we met because you also volunteered at, oh no.
I'm sorry, there's a fly that is not leaving my face alone.
Okay.
Sorry.
We met because you also volunteered at Latinita Startup Chica in San Antonio. So what inspired you to do that? How'd you find out about it?
I had been looking for a way to try and get more involved in the community for a little bit. I moved here from Los Angeles in 2021, and so still somewhat new-ish, but I didn't really know. I didn't have any friends or family here in Austin. They were all in Houston, and I work from home in my little office at my desk all the time. So I wanted to not only meet people, but I also wanted to get more involved with the community. Yeah. I feel really strongly about encouraging our young girls. I think it's super important. I think especially given my history that I didn't always see myself represented, and I always felt kind of like the oddball out, that to me it's really important what Latinitas is doing and making sure that our young girls feel like they belong, and they belong in big fields, and they belong in big positions. So it was funny. Richard and I, you mentioned Roomy, our company. We work with Clover and Maven, which is a store across the street. Yeah.
Yes,
so they're across the street from Latinitas.
Work with them how?
Like our stuff is going to be in their stores coming soon. Yeah, we've been in their markets. We've been participating in their markets. Anybody who doesn't know what Clover and Maven is, it's a really awesome like artist collective and store that's based here in Austin, run by women, encourages female artists. Like it's a really great,
incredible.
Yeah, it's really awesome. So we've been working with them a little bit. So we had been kind of back and forth, and I saw the mariposa that you guys have on the outside of the building, and I saw Latinitas, and that was how I found out about it. Was just walking across the street and looking at your building.
I love that area too. Oh my god,
it's so
all
cute.
The stores in that area are incredible.
Yeah, so that was exactly what happened. Was I was like, I saw the mariposa on the outside, and I was like, that's cute. And then I saw the name, and I was like, I remember I told Richard, I was like, what is this? Like, what is that? And I went home and I Googled it and I started researching it, and I just kind of sent an email and was like, hey, this is what I do. I'm in a creative field. If you guys ever need somebody who does that, like, I would love to come talk to the girls, or especially too, like, in growing up in Texas, sometimes it's really hard for kids to have access to things like Hollywood or movies and TV. Sure. Yeah, I never had access to any of that. And I remember being a kid, and when they would ask me like what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I would say like an artist for theme parks or for movies and stuff like that, people would be like, I don't understand what that means. Like even teachers would be like, I don't understand. And I would have to tell them like, well, you know, like there's
someone
artists.
Has to do that.
There's somebody who does that, and I want to be that person. And so I think I was hoping that, you know, maybe if just there's any girls that ever had questions about art or how to make that into a career, which I also feel really passionate about, that it's not just a hobby, you can make a career out of it, you know? So I just kind of sent out a cold email and reached out, and Celeste, who's wonderful, reached out back to me, and we just started talking, and that was kind of how I got started with it.
That's amazing. So what was your experience? How'd you find the conference?
Oh, it was great. It was so awesome. I mean, everybody was so kind, which was great. I was a little nervous going in. Some of the other mentors that were there that I was talking to, they were like, I was a little nervous too, or I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, it's new for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was really, really nice. Everybody was so kind and welcoming and comforting, and everybody was so impressive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked. I mean, I don't have a big head on my shoulders. I'm not trying to sound like I have an ego, anything like that.
No,
but I
no,
felt
no.
a little like, hey, I have, Nickelodeon on my resume. That's cool. And then I walked in and everybody I spoke to was like, I've worked with NASA. I'm a scientist. Yeah. I've worked with this and that. And I was like, oh, you guys are the coolest people I've ever spoken to.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Everybody was so talented and everybody was so successful. And it was, and I think too, it was a really nice sense of community, and everybody was just wanting to talk to everybody else and share what they've done and how they can help. And as somebody who had just launched her own small business for the very first time, I mean, let's see, this conference was early November, so it was a month old. I just launched a month ago. So getting to go and listen to a lot of these Latina entrepreneurs and business women speaking, it was just as much for me as it was for the girls. Like, I was taking notes, I was listening to everything that they were saying, and
I know, I've had that exact experience.
Right?
It's so good. For anyone who doesn't know what Startup Chica is, it's a one-day conference that Latinitas throws where we get a bunch of girls, like sometimes it's over 100 girls, it depends, but we break them into like groups of 7 or 8, and they pitch an idea. It's like essentially Shark Tank, but like for little kids. Throughout the day, they get different conferences, they pitch ideas, they come up with a business idea, and they pitch it to an audience of like actual professional entrepreneurs at the end of the day. And you were a mentor with like a group, and you were like helping them come up with their ideas and everything. They are so smart. These girls are geniuses, because they had to, like you said, they had to come up with an idea. So we, as the mentors, we were honestly just there to kind of encourage them and give them a little bit of pointers or kind of keep them on the right direction. But some of the ideas they had were brilliant, and they're talking about how to use things that are going to help our environment, how to source ethically, and how to do all of these things, how to use AI in a responsible manner. Ooh. Yeah, they were really smart. They're talking to me about, they're like, how we were asking them at one point, my girls had a really great idea about, their idea was they wanted to have wristbands that connect to certain endangered species that can teach them about them or tell them. Oh, yes, I remember. Yes, yeah. So that was their idea. And at one point we were talking about how they're going to get their idea out there, how people are going to find out about it. And they were like, well, we'll develop, QR codes so that way people can find things, and that's how it'll connect. And I was like, at that age, I think I would have just told you, like, I want to draw a turtle. Like, I don't know that I would have had anything past that, you know? They were really, really smart. And I was very proud that I also had 2 other mentors helping me who were amazing, Mary and Natasha. But they, our group of girls won the Sustainability Award, which we were very proud of them for. They worked really hard. I wrote an article on it, and I remember being like, these are such good ideas. I was like researching it. And that is the one thing I don't know. It's so weird being older, because when I think about me being that age, and it's like, yeah, I guess I was a whole person that had opinions, and that was like new stuff. But then you see this like tiny body, and you're like, how do you know that? Yeah. How are you that smart? Yeah. And they're just like so capable, so impressive, and so ready. And also like having someone like you as a mentor, I'm sure was incredible for them, because it's just like, they stick like glue to anything you tell them about. If you tell them about animation, then they're gonna go home and be like, I want to be an animator. Yeah, and it's so cool to like be there. And I think too, it's always their faces when they realize, like, honestly, I don't even think it ever came up that I worked in animation or anything like that. I don't think it came up at any point, but I got lucky that a bunch of my girls were really into art. So they all wanted to design the logo, and they all wanted to work together. Now, they were using Canva, which I've never used before. So that's why I said these are girls who are much more equipped than I was at their age, So they were teaching me how to use it. But, I was trying to help guide them through, like, a lot of art and design is also based in psychology, so you have to understand how people can relate to color and shapes, and how that language that visual language comes through. And so I was trying to help them in some of these things. I taught them a couple of tricks of how to analyze a design really quickly and stuff like that. But it was funny, just me saying that I was an artist, their faces were like, oh, Yeah.
You know, that's what they were excited about. They
Yeah.
didn't care about anything past that. It was just, you get to draw. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, wow.
Were they
So-
like, draw something for me? I want to see if you can draw.
No, I got lucky. No, I got lucky. They didn't put me on the spot. But there was a couple points where they wanted to draw their logo and they designed a few things. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe we should do this. And I tried to push them in a certain direction or whatever. And they're like, no. And I was like, okay. I was like, you do you.
They have identities.
Yes.
And we're here to encourage
Exactly. I wasn't going to take it away from them. I was like, you do you. Do what you need to. I
That's right.
understand.
So you have worked on projects for huge brands like Nickelodeon and Disney Publishing. Before we get into all of that, like you said, when did you start actually pursuing a career? Was that in high school? Like, when did you know, okay, this is what I want to do?
It's a little bit interesting for me. I think a lot of times when you talk to people who have built creative careers, specifically in something like animation, usually they'll tell you that they were huge fans of animation since they were little kids and that's what they wanted. I grew up watching animated shows, but I wouldn't say it was anything past like what the average kid does. Yeah, I never really thought about animation until when I was in high school. I knew I wanted to be an artist of some kind, and I knew that because I knew I wanted to go into some form of storytelling. I think that was the thing that really, like, that I'm really passionate about. And there's a lot of different methods or mediums you can use for that. And I felt that I had always liked to draw, and I knew that if I could learn how to draw exactly what was in my head, then I could communicate to other people around me those kinds of worlds that I was building in my head, or the way I saw things, and I could express myself in that way, but also visually communicate to somebody, this is what I'm talking about, or this is what I'm seeing. So I was just going to go into illustration because I assumed, they'll teach me how to draw, and that's kind of all I knew. It wasn't until a school counselor I went to the Academy of Art University, which is in San Francisco. It wasn't until I was talking to a counselor there that they were like, well, have you heard of something called visual development? And I said, no.
I have never heard of that.
No, most people haven't. So it's basically just what I do. You learn how to design for animation. So they break down character design.
But it's not animation.
No. Okay. Animation would be, so my job specifically, or what visual development is the best way to give an example is like SpongeBob. Yes. So if I was working on SpongeBob, I would be part of the team that's designing and drawing what SpongeBob looks like. I would design Sandy Cheeks and her house and draw everything and come up with all the designs. And then sometimes too, if it's a 3D show, we have to do like maps and layouts, and you have to literally design a packet of information for everything. Or we are part of the team that paints it all. And then you give that to animators, and animators pretty much put the whole thing together and make it move and come to life, if that makes sense.
Yes, to be honest, that sounds like the more like fun part is you
the designing,
just drawing. Yeah,
I couldn't animate anything if you told me. I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah, because it's so much, and it's so much of like frame by frame, detail by detail, and that's like,
and I'm
not my
like
thing.
That. Yes,
but have fun.
Yes, I'm like, just tell me what you want, and I can come up with a cool idea, and I can start drawing it.
So cool.
Sometimes it gets meticulous because, like I said, you have to do. You'll have to draw. I had to do. On a show called Big Nate, I was a character designer, and I had to draw, my assignment was I had to draw a fish rat. And that was all they said. They were like, it's a creature that somebody makes, and it's a fish rat. And I was like,
I
okay.
love that.
Yeah, that was, you would get the craziest assignments. So they were like, just do that. Or one time they were like,
just do that.
Yeah, they would just do it. Or they were like, one time I had to do a series of mutants that this kid turned into. He had an army of mutants made about him. So I had to design an army of mutants. But you get these really cool assignments, and the first phase is really fun because it's really creative, and you're like, it could have tentacles, it could have an ear, it could have all this crazy stuff. Or the fish rat, maybe its head is fish and the tail is rat. And how does that look like? And at first it's really fun, but then once you finalize a design and your art director says, yeah, that's the design we want, go off of that. For a 3D show, you then have to do an entire packet of information so that a modeler and then eventually animators can build it. So for the fish rat, I had to design him from the front, the side, the back, the top, the bottom. Yeah. Then I have to describe in detail and make notes his hands, how they move, his feet, his tail, his mouth.
So you're just making it
open and closed. I had to do everything.
You get to like created then. You get to be like, oh, he has twitchy hands.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
everything
so
goes
cool.
through an art director to get approved,
Right,
and of course
right.
the showrunners and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you have a lot of control, which is really cool. And all of it's about how, especially at Nickelodeon, a lot of it is how crazy can you get, which makes it really fun. You kind of have a lot of freedom. Yeah. So, but you have to come up with all this information, and that's where it gets a little tedious, is when you have to do the packets describing everything about this character. Or when you do a set, it's the same thing, but for an entire, I didn't have to do it, luckily, but on one of my shows, teammates had to do an entire mansion. Every room, what's in the room, it's a layout, architecture drawings. Like, you have to do a lot of information.
A lot of work, but really cool.
It is. It's really cool once you see it come to life, which is the fun part. But I had never heard of visual development, which I think most people haven't, especially kids in
Yes.
You know,
In Texas,
East Texas and Central Texas.
Right.
Like, it's very rare that you meet somebody who's in that field. So the school counselor was the one who told me about visual development and kind of convinced me to move that direction. And I was like, that sounds really cool. I think I could do that. And again, my passion was in storytelling. So I felt like, well, if I'm learning how to design for literal stories,
Right.
yeah, this sounds like a perfect way to do what I want to do and go down that path. So that I kind of fell into animation. I didn't necessarily mean to, but I once I started studying it in school was when I got super interested, and I started learning more about, you know, how they make these movies and what all goes into it. And that was more when I fell in love with it. It was a little bit later on.
That's so awesome. I'm curious, how was your family about you doing like a more artistic move?
You know what? I got lucky. They were very supportive.
Okay,
like I said, my dad was creative. He became a doctor, but I think he still to this day makes a lot of like clay models, or he draws a lot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I got lucky that I think he's always found a lot of importance in the arts and thinks it's really cool and really important. And I think too, the fact that since I was a little kid, I just constantly drawing and constantly doing that, I think they knew I had a passion for it. So I got really lucky. Both my mom and my dad were both like, if you're going to do it, just make sure that you give it everything you have, because it's going to be hard.
Yeah,
right? It's going to be really hard to break into, and it's going to...
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. It's very much like anybody else or any other creative field trying to break into Hollywood.
Okay,
it is. I mean, usually, I would say in art, it changes. Like, a fine artist is going to have a different career path than somebody who works in animation, who's going to be different from, you know, everybody has a little bit of a different path. But I mean, art is very similar to, I think, you know, acting, writing, singer-songwriters.
You have to know people, and you have to slowly work your way up.
Exactly. I only got to work at Nickelodeon because I got into a training program that they had.
Oh,
I
awesome.
got partially into the training program because I had one name on my resume, and that one name happened to be Disney Publishing. I only got Disney Publishing because I happened to meet someone while I was still in school in San Francisco, and I asked them to look at my portfolio, and they were like, "I'll give you a chance." And so it literally was just because I happened to know somebody, and that's what sparked the chain of events.
Wow.
So it's hard. It takes a lot of hard work. I think like any creative field does, it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of thick skin, because there's a lot of rejection, and the rejection is very normal. My last year of school, I went to, there's this big convention called CTN. It's this big like animated expo for artists, and it's in LA. So I left San Francisco. I went down to LA for this conference. I was honestly, I think it was November of my last, my senior year of college. So I felt all good about my portfolio. And I went, and I was a little nervous to show my portfolio to people. Like, I felt really good about it, but I was kind of nervous to put it in front of professionals' faces and get their reviews and stuff. And my friends all did it, and they had beautiful reviews from everybody they spoke to. They did so well, and they kept telling me, like, you can do this, you can do this. So the last day I was like, I can do this. And I found one person who was a professional artist. I'm not going to say the name, but I walked up to them and I showed them my work, and he ripped me apart. It was brutal.
In front of you?
Yes. Oh, he told me to my face. He told me that I was unoriginal, uninspired, and he would never hire me. And my work was like anybody else, any other random person. Okay. And he ripped me apart, which was terrible. It was really rude, and I was very upset. However, because I am one of those people that kind of fuels off of that.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I did not like it, and it got me so angry that my next semester of school, I told, not that this is necessarily recommended to anybody in art school, but I went back to school and I told all of my teachers, I said, listen, this is my last semester of art school. I don't need a perfect grade. I need a job. So whatever your assignments are, I'm going to respectfully let you know now, I'm going to do whatever my portfolio needs, not what your assignment is.
Whoa.
And I'm going to ask you to critique that. And I got lucky. I mean, I said it in a very nice, respectful way, of course. But I got lucky that they were like, I understand. Okay. And so my entire last semester, I redid my entire portfolio, the entire thing.
And do you think that benefited you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause
I got told by Nickelodeon, once I did the training program, that was the portfolio that got me in, because,
I want to see this portfolio. Oh my God.
Well, it's now compared to what I've done is nothing.
Well,
but
right.
One of the key things that I took from the guy who kind of yelled at me was that my work felt unoriginal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's hurtful.
Or like uninspired. And so what I gathered from that was, let me try and put my own personality or my own humor and that kind of stuff, my own background into the work that I'm doing and make it more personal. So the project that landed me my first several jobs was a project that I did called Vecinos. That was a personal project, but it was about my abuela's house in Miami. And she had like furniture with the plastic wrap around it and like stuff like that. And it was all these kind of funny little details that I grew up with, or like a whole wall full of like frames and photos and crosses everywhere. And it was like all these kind of little details that I thought were funny, or little things that I remembered. And it was those details specifically that when I did my interview for Nickelodeon that they were asking me about, was how did you come up with this? So cool. And or people would see it and they would go, oh, my grandma has that. Or even different backgrounds, like people from different cultural backgrounds would be like, my grandma has that too. And that was I think what landed me the gig.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm not trying to scare you, but I did just want to say my father is also very creative.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We're the same person. Like, I'm telling you.
I'm telling you. Not, but my father is
my mom's
very
not
creative.
Either.
But he can draw a little. He likes to draw, but he's more into writing. And which is why but he was a big encouragement of like writing. He would take me to like a park and be like, this is why you have to write and you never stop writing and all this stuff. And it really, I'm sure your dad feels very proud in a way that like, because he had to do something different for you to be able to live his dream in a way.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
Like, it's really cute.
And he gets to, I think he loves what he does. He's a gynecologist and an OBGYN. So
awesome.
So he's kind of dedicated his life to women, but it's really nice too that he gets to go home and then also like just sit there and draw and do these kind of creative outlets, because I think too, part of what that taught me was how important it is to have a creative outlet, even if you end up, there's nothing wrong with doing a different job, if you're creative, but I mean, Lord knows some of the jobs I've done were like terrible, and I did not like what I was doing at all, and they were like, just paint it, and I was like, okay, it's not gonna look good, but okay, and I would just do it and give it to them, but as long as you get something personal to you, that's your creative outlet. And that can change too. Sometimes my creative outlet when I'm working really hard is just like decorating my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll write a little bit. Like I'm sure you feel that too. That sometimes it's not just writing. Sometimes you do like other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love like playing music and stuff. It's so fun. Also, that guy was horrible.
Yeah,
what
he was really
awful
mean.
person.
He was really mean. This this
Did
is
you
where
ever see him again?
No, I've never seen him again, but just to show you how much of a psycho I am, I had how disturbed I am. I had bought one of his pieces when I had asked him to review my portfolio, just because I didn't want to just walk up to him and be like, hey, look at my work. I wanted to, so I had bought a print of his, and I kept it after he roasted me, and I kept it until my first professional job as an artist, and then I ripped it apart. But I kept it all the way to that point.
What an awful person. I would just like to say to anyone listening, that person did not, okay, maybe you needed like some steering of a guidance or something.
Yeah, but that's not how you do it.
That is not how you do it. And also, he just wanted to feel good about himself.
Yeah.
Clearly something bad happened, and he was like, here's this young, hopeful girl. I'm going to make her feel bad.
Absolutely.
That's disgusting.
But you know what? You're completely right. Unfortunately, when you work in Hollywood, which sounds kind of pretentious to say, but just when you work in Hollywood or when you work in a creative field, there's so much ego sometimes that unfortunately, like, he's not a unique experience. You know what I mean? Like, there was a lot of people that I've met who act like that, who talk like that, who do, it's just crazy. It's unfortunate. But I will say, I think it's specifically important to, artists and, again, young girls, because it's so hard to put your art in front of somebody. And I know you know that too with writing. It's a really personal thing.
Yeah, it's like your whole heart. You're
exactly.
just like, here you go.
Yeah, and it's hard to put your heart and soul in front of somebody and say, critique this, judge it. It's really, really difficult. It's really difficult when you get turned down for jobs, and it's really hard because, again, there's a limited amount of jobs, and you have an entire world full of people, especially, again, with these studios, because they're all based in California, specifically in LA, for the most part, you have an entire world of people trying to get into just those few spots. So you're also competing at the highest levels. You're competing because most jobs are contract based. So you might be a newcomer fresh out of school, and you're competing against somebody who's been working in the industry for a decade. So it's really, really hard. It's really important, if you want to go into a creative field, to develop a tough skin, because you have to be able to have somebody yell at you and act like an animal like that, which is completely wrong. I'm not justifying his behavior in any way. No, of course. But you have to be able to, you can feel it for a minute, and then you have to step back and then reassess and go, okay, well, is there anything productive he gave me that I can use? If not, then I'm going to ignore it. And if so, what can I do? Yeah. Because you have to go through that a lot. When I was interviewing for that training program for Nickelodeon, part of the training process was that it lasted months, but at the very end, they brought us into the studio in Burbank, and they sat me down. They would call us in one by ourselves into a conference room, and I sat by myself at one end of like a really long conference table, no, like the movies, a huge conference table. I was by myself on one end, and there was like 20 people on the other side, all facing me. And they had a screen up where they had all my portfolio playing. And I had to sit there, and they had to ask me questions while I sat there by myself and responded and spoke with them and gave them all my opinions and what I thought about things, and while the artwork was playing. And it's designed to throw you off. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's literally designed to scare you, to make you uncomfortable, and to kind of put you on your toes. But oftentimes when they do that kind of stuff, it means the artwork's already passed. Like, they've already been like, oh, the artwork's phenomenal, this person's good.
Yeah, they just want to see you.
They want to see you, and they want to see how you're going to respond to things, and if you can stay on your toes. Okay. And a lot of it is about
Nickelodeon tends to do that. I've heard that in different ways.
Have you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. They one of the girls who got the job with me, because it was a few of us who got in the training program, one of my friends who did it, she broke down and cried in hers, and she still got the position, because it wasn't meant to terrify her or anything like that, or to make her upset, but they were just like, we need to see how adaptable you are, and unfortunately, again, how tough skin do you have. If your art director tells you something looks terrible and they hate it and you need to completely redo it.
You have to have feedback.
Yeah, you have to go, okay, what is it that you want? And you have to just do the edits. You can't sit there and get emotional and get upset, which, is hard not to. But I think it's all part of a thing that teaches you to have to be a little tough with it, and to critique yourself, which is really important too.
Yeah. No, my college was very different experience, but we did have to write like a little season of like a fake show for one of my classes. I will say I love Brooklyn College so much. We got to write the show, and then the acting students got to act in the show, and then the film students got to film the show. It was really cool. But that whole thing is designed so you edit yourself. And so you're working with a team of writers that are editing like a real writer's room.
Yeah.
And before I entered that, I could not take edits. I like refused. Like that girl, like it physically hurt me, and I would cry. I would immediately be like, you hate me, you hate my life.
It was hard.
I was annoying, but but after that, and it was just a semester long, I became like the biggest fan of edits and feedback and reworking, and it completely changed how I write and how I work with others. I don't think I would be able to have this job or many if I hadn't had that experience. So it is really, in all fields, it's so like imperative that you can put your ego aside a little and be like, okay, let's just look at this, and does this character need to be doing this in this way? No. So.
Right. And I'm sure you feel like it made your writing stronger too, right? Because you feel like you have that ability to then like look back at something and go, okay, well fresh eyes is so important.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes. I mean, I've drawn things before that I'm like, this is genius, and I'm the greatest artist of all time. And then I look at it the next day, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
So you recently co-founded your own company, Roomy ATX, with your partner, Richard.
Yes.
So naturally I have to ask, how did you meet?
Richard and I met, so we both met in school in San Francisco in a digital painting class. We had to take a digital painting class, and then we had to take an oil painting class, so traditional painting, at the same time. And we both were in both of those classes. So it was funny because he was really good at digital painting. I was terrible. I was so bad.
Digital painting is hard.
It's so hard. And I, especially too, like if you've never done that before, I was lost. So I was really bad. And then in traditional painting,
he was lost and you were really good.
God bless him. I'm not going to say it was bad, but it was not. He's much better now. Initially, I think he was getting frustrated with it a little bit, and it was just something that clicked for me really quickly. So it was kind of the opposite. So we both started helping the other in digital and in oil painting, and then we also had. His roommate was friends with my roommate. So then it was also like lunch breaks and stuff like that. We started hanging out, and we were friends for a year before we started dating.
But did you like him initially?
Always.
That's so cute.
Always, yeah. And I think he always liked me too, because he would always kind of like flirt with me and stuff like that. And everybody was like, I think Richard has a crush on you. And I was like, I think so too. But it took a while before we actually were like, I think we should date.
That's so cute. Yeah, a year is a long time. But I guess we're settling that foundation. That's cute. So what made you guys decide to start your own company?
Well, it was a combination of a couple things. I think on one hand, animation's going through a little bit of a rough patch right now, which a lot of industries I think are. Mass layoffs. A lot of people are out of work. They're cutting projects.
Do you think that
left
has to do
and
with
right.
AI? What does that have to do with?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but I think mostly it's just corporate greed, money mismanagement. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's like
the Writers Guild, but for animators.
Well, so our guild is currently going through negotiations right now.
Okay,
so that's part of it. But then also you have, these big studios, they make decisions with their money. They lose a lot of money. And then usually the artists or the creatives or the people further down the pipeline, those are the ones usually who pay the price. And it's just like, oh, we'll cut all of this and lay them off. And, a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of the stuff that's similar. And I have friends who work in like tech and then automotive and like all these different industries. And it sounds like everybody's kind of going through the same thing. But animation's been going through a very intense rough patch the last year, which is odd too, because in COVID and then right after, it was booming. It was like the highest it's ever been because everybody
red. It was so big.
And everybody was at home all the time. So there was content everywhere and everyone wanted to make something. And now I think, with that money mismanagement, now we're all kind of paying this price and we have to kind of wait it out. But with that being said, Richard and I had for a while been discussing not alternatives, you know what I mean? Like we weren't planning on leaving animation, but just what we could do on the side. What was something we could do that was a little bit different? And especially too, like we were saying before, what's something we can do to create or to keep a creative outlet for ourselves? So we had been discussing it. We weren't sure what we wanted to do. And then we both had our best friends have kids around the same time, so we became aunt and uncle at the exact same time to a few different friends' kids. And it wasn't until we were talking with them and they were like, "Hey, can you do something for my kid's nursery? Hey, can you paint something? I need something on the walls." They kept telling us they couldn't find anything. And we were, you know,
I bet that industry is probably like weird and like ugly.
And we're artists, so like we are around all of our friends' beautiful art all the time. So we were kind of like, you don't know what you're talking about, like you just don't know where to look. So we were kind of like, yeah, whatever. And I started researching it, and I literally,
ugly.
Oh my gosh. Well, so for parents, it looked like the options in specifically artwork for children or artwork for children's rooms and decor. Their only options were to either go to one of these big box, huge corporate chains where they have little to nothing available, and what they do have available is pixelated. It is completely blown out. It is usually not very well designed. It's a lot of times is AI art.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just not a great quality, and they're still going to charge you a higher price than what it's worth.
Anything.
Right.
It's
and
probably just not great.
Yeah. And it's not meaningful in any way. It's not, it doesn't connect you to anything. It doesn't, you know, art should make you think or it should make you feel something. It doesn't do any of that. It's very generic, like when you go into a pediatrics office and it's just like a bunny with a rainbow or something. But it's like crazy pixelated. So we were realizing that parents kind of only had that option, or
expensive.
Well, yeah, to commission an artist to paint something if they wanted something really meaningful or really specific to that artist. And we're professional artists, so we know what that rate looks like. If you were to commission somebody on our level to paint something like that, you're talking like it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we also feel really strongly that good design and art shouldn't be something that's limited to just people with a huge income that can,
of course.
Yeah, it should be something that everybody has access to, and it's really important for our mental health. Studies literally show that.
Right.
So once we kind of realized that there was a gap there, that was when we were like, oh, maybe this is our idea. Maybe this is what we can do.
Because then it's like you're designing like fun stuff. It's like cute and creative.
Yeah, and what's funny is we've noticed since we launched that a lot of times adults are who are buying these things, you know. They're buying it for their own apartments, for their kitchen. We have the one piece, I don't know if you saw, it's like it has dino nuggets on it.
Yes.
Yeah. All the adults we know have bought it for their own kitchen. And so we realize that I think adults too are craving that same sense of like design and humor and
just
meaning.
Beauty. It's beautiful. It's
Thank
like
you.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you're in the animation world, so I don't know if this is a compliment, but it gives like Ratatouille Pixar vibes. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. It is a compliment. It is a compliment.
What inspired the brand name Roomy ATX?
Oh, I don't even know if that's that interesting. We were at a
It's
bagel
just a
store. Yeah, we were at a bagel place, and we were kind of like, okay, we had decided like, let's do this. Let's actually make something here. And Richard came up with the name, and we were trying to find something that was pretty clear and simple and to the point and easy to remember. And he just came up with it, and he started drawing it. And because it's called Roomy and it has the 2 O's and then the Y, it made a perfect smiley face opportunity.
Yeah,
so
cute.
we were kind of like, okay, I guess that's it. And then ATX just simply, since we've moved to Austin, we really love it. And we love the city. We love how weird it is. We love the appreciation in things that are different, things that are artisan, things that are handmade. There's so much an importance on that, and not these kind of like, again, these huge big box corporate stores. And so we're like, why not put that right into the identity? Represent Austin.
Okay. I want to play a game with you real quick.
Okay,
I didn't tell you about this, so I'm excited.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I'm going to show you some of your Roomy ATX designs. I'll put a picture up there, and you have to tell me the inspiration behind it or like a little fun fact about creating it.
Ooh, okay.
First one.
Okay, so that piece, I sketched out the concept for that. Each piece is created between both Richard and I. It's not like one of us does everything for one.
Right.
So that one, I sketched out the idea because I love those old retro, like Pan Am posters to visit and stuff like that. And one of my friends specifically was having a really hard time finding artwork for her baby's room that she wanted to represent Latin culture. And so that was where the idea came for that one.
Obsessed.
Love. And we had to do so many iterations of her face.
Oh, really?
Because at first it was like she was really, really pretty, but a friend of ours who works in children's books was like, children can't read smiles a certain way, and if it's too pointy, it's scary. So that poor woman had her face painted like 10 different times, 10 different ways before we landed on that.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So that's what I think of when I look at her.
I was actually just thinking, I'm going to get this for my dad. He doesn't know. But he runs a Latino studies program in a college in Houston.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, in UHD. And he would love that. He did for his thing. Okay. Second one.
I love bread. And that's all I have.
Okay, love it.
That's all I got. That came from my soul. That piece came from deep in my soul.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. This is just me. I have no business saying this. This is like, I shouldn't be pitching anything to you.
Do it.
But if you ever did a series of like cute food items, I'm obsessed with cute food items. And I'm just going to say, like, the jelly cats are a really big thing right now. And they're all just like cute little foods and croissants. So I think it would go well.
We're in the middle of launching when we just debuted another food item. So we're doing Lucha Libre.
Yes.
Posters of different foods. And we just launched our first one this weekend at a market. And then we are having more coming out soon.
I'm so excited. This one. Oh, this is the dino one.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. We have a book of old retro food posters and advertisements. Ooh. And I was looking through them and I was thinking, well, what's a kind of a funny thing that everybody loves, adults included? And that Dino Nuggets was where we landed.
I'm obsessed with it. Wait, so do you guys paint it like physically paint or digitally paint?
We digitally paint, but we operate on a Cintiq, which is just basically like a giant computer screen that you can paint directly on top of. So every stroke and everything that you see on there is me or Richard with a pen and our actual strokes, like hand painting it. We're just doing it on a computer screen as opposed to, oil paints or watercolor or something like that.
Okay, cool. And then this one.
So our entire house is decorated in old movie posters because that's my favorite. That's just like my favorite art form, really. And I'm obsessed with them. And I don't have Jaws in my house, but I have like my office is like Sunset Boulevard and like all these old movie posters because they're so dramatic.
Yeah, they're incredible.
And one day there was a conversation about like what movie posters that adults recognize that are kind of iconic can we translate into something that would be really funny or funny for kids or something that's more relatable or just something kind of that everybody knows. And trying to figure out a way to make Jaws not terrifying was what we spent most of our time on working for that piece. Yeah,
that's so cute. And then lastly,
that piece, that's my favorite piece that we have. So that one, I was telling you earlier, one of my favorite artists of all time is Mary Blair, who was an artist who is known for working in the Disney parks and specifically designing It's a Small World. And I love her stuff. It's filled with color. It has a very similar feel to that piece. And so I one day I was inspired by her. I just started painting some of the blocks that are on the right-hand side. And as I started painting it, Richard and I were talking, and Richard was like, well, what if it's paper crafts? And what if that's the thing that makes it, reminds you of your childhood and that kind of thing. And so that was how that piece came about, which is cute too, because at markets, when we've been around people, we've had parents come up and we've had them respond exactly that way, that they start pointing to things and showing their kids and they're like, what is this? How do you make this? And like, those are macaroni, or how do you do this? Well, I use paper. And they're like talking about how they do it. So it's really, again, going back to everything, it's really about creating pieces that are meaningful, but also interactive and are more than just, again, some corporation doesn't want to pay an artist, so they're going to steal their designs, produce it cheaply, and then overprice you for it.
Right. Yeah. To close this out quickly, if you had one student who Wait, what? Oh, okay. If one of our students wanted to work in animation when she got older or pursue art, what advice would you give her to make that dream become a reality?
I would tell her, kind of like we were saying earlier, that it's going to be really hard, but everything that's hard is worth doing it, you know? Develop a tough skin, make sure that you can take critique. Your art is extremely important, your style, your personality, and who you are, but it's just as important to remember that you're also it is a place of business. So also work on how you communicate with people, how you handle critique, you know, how you maintain your ego, how you know how to network and talk to people. It's going to be very much on you to make it happen. And it's possible. You can do it. It's just hard, but you can do it. And art is, in my opinion, art and anything creative is one of the most important things on earth. And I think it's extremely powerful, and that's why so many people want access to it, and so many people try to take it from you and charge you cheap and do all these things so that they can have access to it. But if you have that ability to do it for yourself, then that means you yourself are really powerful, and you can definitely make a career out of it and make it happen.
And then last question. What do you have in store for Roomy ATX? Are there any new plans or prints to look forward to?
By spring, I'm actually talking with a few different places about possibly teaching. I know we're going to be doing like workshops and stuff like that. I think we're doing an event with Toyberry Austin in January. We're talking with a few local places about workshops and doing that kind of stuff. So I think more, hopefully by the spring, more community events and stuff like that. Yeah.
Amazing. And I mean, those are all the questions I have for you. So thank you so much. If you have any last things, where can people find you? Where can people find Roomy ATX?
Yeah, so we have our website, which is roomyatx.com. We have our Instagram, which is roomy.atx.
I think so.
Ignore our TikTok because I'm not very good on TikTok and I'm the one managing that. But you can access on Instagram and on our website. You can see all of our prints, and there's also a newsletter and everything on there, so you can stay up to date with every time we drop something new.
That was my conversation with Marisa Torres, the absolute incredible artist, kind-hearted person, lovely, phenomenal, hilarious person, and also co-founder of Roomy ATX, which you can check out now on roomyatx.com or on Instagram. It was such a delight talking to her, hearing the ins and outs of an industry that I have like truly no idea about, but it was so fun. And I encourage you all to follow her and check out Roomy ATX. And I will see you on the next Conversando. Adios.